morning. Wonder if you guys are reading the papers. I read a lot of papers. I prefer them to social media, which is probably why I haven't marketed myself like I should, because it takes a lot of time and energy to do marketing. So when I have an idea or I get free time to read, I post whatever I can, wherever I can. I try to be as accurate as possible. I read the Times, I read the Guardian, I read the Financial Times, I read the South China Evening Post, I subscribe to ProPublica, the Marshall Plan, which talks about prison reform, and you name it, the Kaiser Family Foundation, Moral Money, etc., etc., etc. All so I can see what's happening in our world. I gave up listening to the news years ago when I started talking back to it because I didn't like what I heard. As far as I'm concerned, the news has evolved into entertainment. I really don't want entertainment. I want to know how everyone really feels and what's really happening in our economy. I don't want somebody's second or third hand to tell me. I want to see the real numbers and the statistics and get it from the right people and the right sources. Looks like interest rates are not going too much higher. However, I just noticed that mortgage rates are up to 7%. That may put a damper on all housing, though I saw Buffett is still a net buyer into the housing market because he knows there's going to be demand. And based upon what I'm seeing on infrastructure projects, or the lack of them thereof, we're going to need a lot more infrastructure. The good news is a lot of the Gulf states, including Oklahoma, Texas, they're using renewables, a lot of renewables, wind farms and solar farms. They're taking advantage of all those federal tax credits, and I hope that they're employing a lot of folks at decent wages. Same thing is going to happen with the chips. They're going through Arizona, Ohio, and into other southern communities where they're going to be building anywhere from 4 to 6 major factories. That should get people going again as well, with decent wages. And it is absolutely doable to work in a clean room society. I know. We used to employ the local community at Pfizer in the Brooklyn plant when I was there in 1979 and the early 80s. And I remember when the first time I went into sterile product environment, I kept saying, oh, it's not going to be so bad. But it really was. I mean, for 20 minutes, I felt like the novice that I was. Here I was going to manage the facility, and I was hyperventilating behind my glasses. So it takes training. I know, because we also did clean room, though it wasn't a clean room, it was out in the open. When we switched to bare paint at Ford Motor Company, their idea of clean was you didn't see the dirt. So the guys at the Wixom plant had to understand what the level of clean meant in order to maintain the new paint system. They learned. It took them a year, but they learned. And so I think there's going to be community colleges gearing up, Stanford, different colleges in Arizona, Ohio, and they're going to give folks a certificate in clean room manufacturing. That's a real plus for the economy. And that's where the economy should be going. New jobs, new infrastructure, and back to the manufacturing base that we always had. Except now we gotta think smartly. We can't put down a lot of people where we've got scarce water resources. Gotta be mindful of what we're doing. And I think that the time has come, and people are indeed becoming more informed in spite of the bans on books, and more educated. Don't see it in the numbers yet, but whole communities are becoming involved in protecting their environment. You saw the Montana case? The kids won. They're entitled to clean air and clean water. It says it in the Montana Constitution. They won, and now they can start bringing big oil and probably big agri to trial. In Hawaii, before the Maui fires, Hawaiians were already suing big oil for not letting them know years ago what the devastation to the islands would be. Remember, the islands were controlled by their original indigenous population. They knew how to maintain their environment. And then came the upgrades and the new industry and the tourism. And all of a sudden, they didn't have water. You're wondering why a lot of people died in Maui. Well, according to the papers, a lot of people died in Maui, unfortunately, because the Hawaiian utility has not upgraded its cabling and its power plants. And when the drought came and the high winds came, you could see the Hawaiian utility catching fire and spreading it. Just like it happened in California with, I believe it was PG&E. They were the cause of the campfire fires. Well, right here in Hawaii, that's what happened. And when the power lines go down, since the power lines provide energy for the heat pumps and for bringing water up out of the wells, well, you don't have water to fight the fires either. So the fires go out of control. And that's what happened. So far, we've said 100 people have perished. 1,000 are missing. That's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that could have been averted. And it shouldn't fall directly on the Hawaiian utility. Hawaii already has a lawsuit going against big oil. I think they're part of the blame. No matter what happens on our planet, you gotta look at big oil, the carbon emissions, the methane emissions, and big agri, because those are the folks who are causing the emissions that are destroying our lives. We also know that we have PFAS chemicals in most of our waterways. Well, for 10 years, activists have been battling against the use of these polyfluorocarbons to no avail. Now we're getting upsurges in cancer in young people. Our lifespan in Mississippi has decreased to 71 years, 71 point something. That's like lower than one of the countries in Africa. Something is wrong in America. And what's wrong is too many people are concentrating on little silos of information on social media. And all you get is confirmation bias. I don't even see what you're seeing on social media. At least when I read the papers, I knew whoever is reading that paper is seeing the same thing I'm seeing and getting the same news. And why do I sample many papers? So that I get different point of views on the same subject. But at least I have the opportunity to understand what our issues are. When you're just on social media for all your information, well, depending on whether you're right, left, or center, you don't see what everyone else is seeing. It's different. And the difference makes a big difference. Otherwise, this week, we wouldn't have had the FBI crack down on some police departments in California because the police officers, it turned out, were the ones who were putting racist data on social media. We don't need divisions in our country. Most of us are good people who just want to earn a living, who just want to provide for our families. And if you're like me, you want to leave a better life for your kids. Well, the way to do that is to be informed. In Ecuador, they've had several problems with their community and their country. But one thing they've decided, no matter what, they're putting it to the test whether or not the people of Ecuador want to leave big oil and gas in the ground. They're debating whether or not this is the way the entire country wants to go. And I think that's a good thing, because the entire country has made a decision. Do they tap into the profits and destroy their environment, or do they leave those assets in the ground and save themselves and diversify and make whatever money they can out of the many minerals that they have in a clean, orderly way? That's democracy at its best. We can have that here, folks, too. I think that there ought to be an uncapping of the House of Representatives. It means that many of us are unfairly represented. That cap on the House of Representatives and how many people you can send to Congress was decided in 1929. It's now capped at 435 folks. At least 10 states have less than or up to 1 million people. The rest of us have many more. Well, we should be represented differently in the House than those 10 states. And yet, all of our communities are capped. Think about it. You want real representation? Take away archaic laws. Think about whether or not we want the Electoral College, since folks have been tampering with it, so that we don't have one man, one woman, one vote. It may be time to revise the Constitution, the makeup of the House of Representatives, and decide whether we want a popular vote or an Electoral College vote that could be tampered with. Because that's exactly the crime that Donald Trump is indicted for, attempting to tamper with the votes of the Electoral College. By the way, the reason he wants the trial in Georgia to be shifted to the federal government or a federal courthouse, there's no televising federal trials. In Georgia, They televise if they want to. And with 19 people or 18 people being indicted because they have broken the laws of our land and gone against the oath of our Constitution, it's going to be a civics lesson for sure if we were all allowed to watch the trials. So that's the news as I see it today. Take care, everyone, and have a lovely day.